Now, approximately 100 officials from 6 municipalities in the Eastern Cape are reportedly facing disciplinary action over the management of public funds, and it comes in the wake of a decision by National Treasury to temporarily withhold the equitable share allocations to several municipalities in the province. So let's get an understanding of what exactly is going on here. We speak to the MEC for Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Zolile Williams. MEC, good evening to you, and thank you so much for your time. Perhaps we start with what prompted this particular action.
Good evening to you, Bongiwe, and good evening to the viewers. Well, Bongiwe, the action was prompted actually by the National Treasury taking a decisive step to use Section 2162 of the Constitution and Section 38 of the Municipal Finance Management Act, wherein the equitable share was temporarily withheld for those municipalities that are failing to comply with laws and regulations, specifically those that are unable to pay their creditors like SARS, your Auditor General, ESCOM, the water boards, pension funds of the employees, all those municipalities that have failed to do that, and including irregular and wasteful expenditure, which has not been dealt with. All those municipalities were actually identified, and funds were stopped from going to them so that they can comply with legislation.
So then you are taking action, right, following that particular decision by National Treasury. For you, what became the biggest red flags? Because we're seeing now around 100 officials.
Well, red flags have been known by us as the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Provincial Treasury, and the Auditor General has highlighted some of those red flags, including National Treasury. So we knew that there are municipalities that have got underfunded or unfunded budgets, which is incorrect because such municipalities mislead the public in terms of pretending to have adopted a budget that is implementable, but when that budget has to be implemented, services cannot be delivered. So National Treasury is trying to bring a stop on those municipalities in order for them to be realistic and budget accordingly and according to what is available to them, the cost they have recovered, the revenue they recovered from the public. So once we have been dealing with these matters, National Treasury just escalated a little bit to say, let me be decisive and try to enforce these municipalities, because some of them have got huge irregular expenditure that is not dealt with. But ever since we started to put pressure on them with Provincial Treasury, assisted by the Auditor General, with identifying such municipalities, we put pressure on them, municipal public accounts committees. We trained them, but we want them to implement the recommendations that are being sent through to council so that those who are accountable for mismanagement of public funds are dealt with accordingly. And so far, we are impressed that some municipalities, in fact, the number is 117, have taken action against officials that are found to be involved in nefarious intentions and misusing public funds.
So when it comes then to, the equitable share allocations that have been withheld, have you received, some of the turnaround plans from some of these municipalities that would have been impacted? Have we seen money, for example, being reallocated, or are you still where you were when Treasury made the announcement?
You would remember, Bongiwe, that on the 14th, we called a provincial meeting, which we arranged, myself, the MEC for Finance, and the Honorable Premier, where all 6 of our municipalities were to account on whether they have submitted all the required information that was to be submitted to National Treasury. We only in that meeting found that only one municipality, Sundays River, did not submit and was to submit the following day. Nelson Mandela had submitted, but the submissions were not received by Treasury. And so in the meeting, they were able to submit those documents to us and the Treasury officials. Buffalo City and Port St. John's had already submitted, and those two, when we were in that meeting, the National Treasury had already given a green light on them that they will receive their allocations. Because it's a temporary withholding of these funds, as municipalities comply with the submissions, Treasury is then opening up for them to receive what is due to them.
All right, and I suppose these municipalities now that have to understand the impact, right, of this equitable share then being, withheld, given the fact that they now need to do some work. But before I let you go, I still want us to talk about another story, which is the initiation season. And for you, of course, we're seeing a concern when it comes to deaths. And from your vantage point, one, how concerned are you about the deaths? But also, two, where do you begin to think the failures when it comes to preventing such deaths is concerned from a provincial perspective? Because we saw COCTA nationally wanting 0 deaths.
Well, that is a very, very serious matter you are raising now, Bongiwe. And let me quickly steal this opportunity to send a message of condolences to the 14 families who have suffered initiate deaths during this season. Additional to that, condolences to the family of Nkosi Gwadiso, who is the chairperson of the Traditional House of Traditional Leaders in the Eastern Cape, who has suddenly passed on yesterday. And so we were busy with him to try and deal with initiate's death. You know, Bongiwe, we got to the bottom at least of what was happening in this tradition. When we visited Amaboma yesterday, we met traditional leaders of Nyandeni area, especially Ngeleni in Nomadolo village. The traditional leader there was honest with us to say, look, MEC, thank you that you have visited again my place, and we have visited my great place. The challenge we are having here is that we are not very much informed about traditional circumcision. And therefore, what is happening here is just illegality across the board. That is why you don't see traditional circumcision huts in an area where you can easily monitor them. They are hidden in mountains, in deep dongas. Fortunately, we were with the media when we visited those areas. Quite unreachable, Bongiwe. But what was really serious was the admission that they do not understand the tradition, so they are trying themselves with the lives of the kids. That's why I have consistently said that area of Nyandeni is becoming a slaughterhouse because people are trying themselves with lives of young people. And so we have agreed with the late Nkosi Gwadiso and the House of Traditional Leaders that because they want to practice this custom, we will have to get closer to them once this season comes to an end. We must get closer to Nomadolo village, take those who have already undergone the tradition through a training program that is focused so that we can ameliorate deaths. The age of initiates, Bongiwe, is 12 years. And in our tradition in this province, you can't have such a young person being circumcised unless you want to create problems.
Sure.
At least a boy must be 18 years. But once you go lower, I mean, I'm not saying boasting that we the Xhosa people have got a better, no. but you can't take a young person less than 18 years to a traditional sector and hope that he's going to succeed. He will not. It must be a fully fledged boy that goes there.
MEC, I think you and I need to circle back to this one, and talk about it a bit more, because really, as you say, it is quite concerning. But thank you for taking us into the picture just to understand what also you are having to uncover as far as what could be going on here. I appreciate your time. That is the MEC for Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Zolile Williams, there in the Eastern Cape.